Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Rockingham, North Carolina for the Carolina 500. I'm Bob Jenkins along with Eli Gold, set to bring you the action. A couple of things to talk
I had no idea what might lie ahead for me personally or professionally when Eli Gold, Ned Jarrett, and I signed on for the very first ESPN NASCAR Winston Cup broadcast in March of 1981. The cable television industry was in its infancy, and there were still doubts about the viability of a 24-hour sports network. NASCAR was in its 33rd season, but was still perceived by many to be a regional sport. ABC's Wide World of Sports had provided tape delay or same-day limited coverage of the series since 1961. But live start-to-finish coverage of the events other than the Daytona 500 were rare. ESPN's first 4 NASCAR Winston Cup races were tape delayed, but for the November Atlanta Journal 500, the decision was made to present the race live from start to finish. It was the lighting of a fuse that would produce dramatic results.
Gentlemen, start your engines.
We're proud to be here for ESPN to present this race live, a first for Auto Racing 81 and ESPN. I'm Mike Joy to cover the action along with Larry Newberg. Neil Bonnet into turn 1, retakes the lead. The Ford is back out in front. And Bonnet from Hueytown, Alabama, looks to win his 3rd race of the season. There's time, though, for one more exchange at the south end of the speedway. Waltrip did it a lap ago. He's got one more shot. They left by John Anderson. A blur at the bottom of your screen at 160 miles an hour. Here comes Yarborough. Yarborough, bottom of the racetrack. He's got Waltrip, and that will let Bonnet slip away. It'll be Bonnet out of turn 4, all the way to the checkered flag. Waltrip is second by inches.
In the years that followed, Atlanta became the site for many of our greatest moments, featuring some incredible conclusions to the battle for the NASCAR Winston Cup Championship. In 1986, Dale Earnhardt became the first driver to clinch a NASCAR Winston Cup Championship live on ESPN.
Dale Earnhardt at Atlanta, Georgia on a Sunday afternoon in November wins the Atlanta Journal 500 and wins the Winston Cup for the 2nd time in his career. Dale Earnhardt is champion.
Dale Earnhardt would change the face of NASCAR with an intimidating presence that was beamed across America to an ever-growing audience on ESPN. His growth in popularity ignited a passion in the fans that helped NASCAR expand in popularity from its established base, as well as proving to ESPN that the partnership with NASCAR could pay big dividends for both. Earnhardt was a throwback to the competitors from NASCAR's roots and was not afraid to challenge any driver. From our first glimpse of Dale at Rockingham in 1981 to his electrifying charge at Talladega in October of 2000, Earnhardt never failed to excite our audience.
Dale Earnhardt Sr. has come from 17th spot in 4 laps to lead it on the final lap. The no-ball 5 contender, Mr. Restricted Place, Dale Earnhardt comes down and will take his 10th career victory at Talladega.
Dale Earnhardt won more races and captured more championships on ESPN than any other driver. We will see much more of Dale as well as many other great moments when ESPN Classic presents 20 years of NASCAR on ESPN continues. 14th year of sponsorship in NASCAR, a new awards program was introduced. It was called the Winston Million. A $1 million bonus would be paid to any driver who might be able to win 3 of 4 NASCAR Crown Jewel events. A most unlikely candidate for the $1 million prize emerged from the red clay hills of Dawsonville, Georgia. His name? Bill Elliott. Elliott first attracted ESPN's attention with a classic duel with Richard Petty at Rockingham in 1983.
This is the final lap at Rockingham, less than a mile to go. Richard Petty is the leader, Bill Elliott right behind him. They're out of the 2nd turn now down the backstretch. Bill Elliott is going to have to make his move. There is a lot of traffic ahead of them as they go into the 3rd and 4th turns now. Here they come toward the 4th turn and the start-finish line coming up. Bill Elliott will make one desperate attempt as he goes to the inside. Richard Petty holds him off, and Richard Petty picks up a victory at Rockingham.
For NASCAR's all-time winner, it was Richard Petty's only win on ESPN. Despite that fact, the King would play a major role in our coverage of the series. For a discouraged Bill Elliott, his defeat was devastating. His post-race interview offered little hope for the future.
I did everything I could do, and I just couldn't do it.
Someday.
Boy, I'll tell you what, seems like it's getting farther and farther away. I just can't believe it.
Bill Elliott, a very disappointed young driver.
When the 1985 season opened, Elliott served notice at the Daytona 500 that he was taking his assault on the Winston Million seriously. He dominated speed weeks, winning the pole, a 125-mile qualifying race, and leading 136 of the 200 laps that make up the Daytona 500. 9 weeks later at Talladega, Elliott would pull off one of the most exciting feats in motorsports history. After dominating the early stages of the Winston 500, Elliott was forced to the green flag pit stop on lap 48, suffering from an oil leak. With repairs made, Elliott returned to the track nearly 5 miles behind the leader. In less than 100 laps of flat-out green flag racing, Elliott caught and passed the leaders to make up the deficit and go on to win the Winston 500 at a new 500-mile race record of 186.288 miles an hour. Elliott's first shot at winning the Million came at Charlotte in the World 600, but Elliott was relegated to an 18th place finish after suffering a number of mechanical problems. When Elliott arrived at Darlington for the Labor Day Classic, he was the center of attention for ESPN as well as the rest of the media.
It was at that time and remains the greatest media craze I've ever seen at a racetrack. A lot of people absolutely would not leave the man alone. He would crawl under the race car. He works on his own race car. There was a camera or a microphone under the race car with him. And Bill has admitted in years since he didn't know how to handle it. And I've written and expressed it this way: I'm very surprised that his hair didn't fall out like Roger Maris's did when he was chasing Babe Ruth's home run record in '61.
Here was Elliott, this young kid from Georgia that looked and sounded like Huck Finn, but he shows up at Darlington ready to potentially win $1 million, and he surrounds himself with guards.
When the green flag fell on the 36 Southern 500, Elliott grabbed the early lead from his pole position starting spot. Bill would hang on in the top 5 positions for most of the day, dodging several on-track incidents that might rob him of his $1 million payday.
And right in front of Elliott, and Elliott misses him. Boy, that was close. Bill Elliott almost saw the $1 million go away on the backstretch.
In the final stages of the 4-hour marathon race, Cale Yarborough looked to be Elliott's most serious contender. While leading on lap 323, Yarborough's Ford erupted in smoke as a broken power steering hose poured hot fluid onto his engine. Elliott avoided disaster and went on to lead the final 44 laps as he headed for the history books.
Bill Elliott is racing into the record books. Bill Elliott is going toward immortality. Bill Elliott gets the checkered flag. Bill Elliott has won an additional $1 million in 1985.
The victory lane was just dazzling. It absolutely was dazzling. These dollar bills, imitation phony dollar bills, but they sure looked like it, were falling on our heads, and everybody was just so excited. It was a dramatic, exciting, fun moment. I think that was one of the pivotal moments in Winston Cup racing to that point. But it didn't end there. The thing I think that impressed me the most about the day was not what I experienced in Victory Lane, but what I experienced driving to the airport at Charlotte. Because people all the way to Charlotte were on their porches, and they were celebrating, and they had signs, and they had banners, and it was as if the whole state of first South Carolina, then North Carolina, were celebrating this dramatic sports event that had happened right in their own backyard. It's a day I'll never forget.
Bill Elliott's win of the Winston Million at the Southern 500 at Darlington was a great milestone moment for NASCAR and ESPN. It was front-page news on many major publications and helped propel Bill Elliott into the national spotlight as a new American hero and draw more fans to ESPN's ever-expanding coverage.